that I'm no joke. No joke, baby, I'm no joke. Oh, na, na, na. No joke.
Hi guys, it's Elizabeth here from Talk That Talk, and I've got my lovely, what should I call you guys? Panelists, hosts, guests, whatever. Anyway, I'm here and today we're talking about a topic which will maybe trigger somebody or make them have certain feelings, and it is vulnerability a weakness or a strength? Now we've got Andrea here, as some may know, you'll see on some episodes, and we've got our baby girl Lara, we've got our fabulous Faith Fontaine, and we've got our Cockney Black.
Or the oven.
The oven, aka the oven. We can't roast him. Yeah. Anyway, guys, so as you know, we're talking about this topic and it's about vulnerability. Is vulnerability a weakness or a strength, and how do you guys see it? I'm not going to start with you because men do see things differently to us. So how about Andrea? Let's start with you.
I think vulnerability is a massive strength because it means that you have enough confidence to show what we all have, which is a weakness. You know, we all have it. It's just most people spend so much time trying to cover it up. It's natural because we can't present all our weaknesses to everybody. But I'm just saying, like strategic or selective vulnerability, I think is a really good thing if you can muster it.
Yeah, I think I spent my whole life like avoiding vulnerability, like not trying to be vulnerable out of fear, like not trying to let people see me. I don't want people to understand me. I don't want people to see those emotions, like always been hard-headed, but I feel like that's how I was raised. Like not showing emotions, like, you know, my dad is Muslim, I'm African. We don't do the whole emotional thing. It's like, go, deal with it, and then come back when you're ready.
Wait, your dad's Muslim?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, I didn't
My
know
dad's
that.
Muslim, my mum's Christian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're still married. Yeah.
And they're still married.
And they're still married. Yeah. So I've always not been one of those people that didn't want to be vulnerable. But as I've grown older, I've realized that there's a lot of situations that I could have missed out on by not being vulnerable. And I feel like if I just accept who I am and be vulnerable and the person still doesn't understand or get me, then I guess that's just on me. But I know, on them, but I know that I've tried to show you who I am and I've tried to be vulnerable. But vulnerability is hard, especially if you've been through trauma as well. It's like opening up yourself to people and them letting you down and you're trying to hide yourself from experiencing that. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Do you want to say something?
I was just going to say that vulnerability is a really important thing to be able to feel comfortable with. I think that's in moments of vulnerabilities when human connection happens and you're able to relate to other people. And I think you get the best out of people when you show a certain level of vulnerability. But I think it's really important to be able to manage that, because being overly vulnerable can be something that actually repels people from you, or can actually be to your detriment in terms of like your image. Say in the workplace, for example, being too vulnerable can actually make you look somewhat incompetent, unstable and whatnot. But I think
there needs to be a balance.
There really has to be a balance, definitely. And I think as a woman, from a woman's perspective, being vulnerable, yes, you have to be wise and know who. That's why the discernment comes in. You need to know who you can be vulnerable with. But in order I date men, so in order for me to get the best out of my man, I need to be able to be vulnerable to let him know where, you know, my fears, where my pitfalls are as a woman, where I might need some kind of, you know, help. He might, or my deficit, what's the word? What I'm deficient in, yes, and where he maybe can help supplement that, and that's done through vulnerability. And I think you get the best out of men that way.
100%. As women, I think it's like, I don't know, society in a way, it feels to me that they're trying to breed that out of us somehow.
Yes, yeah.
It's like, you know, superwoman, hero, like wear the pants, be the boss. Don't ever show anyone that you need help with anything, and that's what makes you a good woman. And it's like, actually, hold on a minute, you're like, as a woman, you will miss out on some of your best qualities if you think that way.
Yeah.
And your best approach to life isn't to show up like Mrs. Bulletproof. You know, it 100%. Just isn't. I can go into that, but anyway, let's hear from the man.
So, vulnerability is a weakness if the person that you're having to be vulnerable to is not value in it, is not able to receive your vulnerability. So I'm giving you the view, I'm trying to give you a view from the person's perception of you being vulnerable. They'll see it as a weakness. It's a strength for sure. Being able to admit when you're wrong, talk about what hurts you, what bothers you, anything that makes you feel vulnerable, you have to be careful with it, like what you're saying about. You can't be too vulnerable too often in front of someone that doesn't preserve it.
Yeah.
You can be vulnerable as much as you want, as long as the person in front of you is not going to end up using it against you at some point further in whatever, whether it's a professional relationship or a loving relationship down the line. You should be able to be vulnerable. You should be able to say what makes you upset. You should be able to go there with your feelings, with someone that's going to guard how you feel in that moment when you're expressing yourself. And I feel like for men, there's, like what you're saying, there's a lot of undefined, immaturely defined, what is macho, what is being a man. Go home and just
deal with it yourself.
Exactly. But that dealing with it, some people can. Like, I'm all right by myself dealing with things. I'll process my own thoughts, what I should have done, what I shouldn't have done, what I should have said, your actions, your words, your actions, But other people, when they go, and I was talking about when they were alone, because I've also been that person, you can take yourself in a downward spiral of low self-esteem.
Okay, so you see, like Faith said, she feels that she should be, I'm talking like you're not even here. You know, when you said that you, like with your guys, you somewhat
My
vulnerable.
guys,
Yeah, no.
Damn.
Oh, she's getting mad. No. You know, like with a guy, should I say? If you're with a guy, you would feel like you would need to be vulnerable, and then it will bring out their side to them as well.
But
See, the thing is, kind of along their lines. Now, I'm not a particularly vulnerable person when it comes to my men, right? But they do, for some reason, are very vulnerable with me. So I don't feel like you necessarily have to be vulnerable for someone else to be vulnerable with you. And that's when, especially when it comes to men, because I do feel like if they feel comfortable with you, or I've got quite a mothering nature, so people tend to be able to be vulnerable for me. And I think it's because part of it is a trusting relationship as well. Like no matter what happens, no matter how vulnerable a man will be with me, I will never use it against him. Oh, remember when you were crying like this or doing that? Or I would never use it against him. So I feel that they could be comfortable. So I as I said, I'm not vulnerable, but people are vulnerable with me.
Do you know what? I don't think that these men or the man or man, in that scenario, I don't think that their vulnerability is healthy or managed properly. Because if you're not,
In what scenario, sorry?
Sorry?
If I'm not vulnerable,
if
and
she's not vulnerable,
they are.
Yeah, if you're not vulnerable and they are, and they're consistently being vulnerable with you, I don't think that's healthy.
I think it helps.
The reason why I say that is because they are obviously in need. You are an energy. You're a something that they're missing in their heart, so in their life even, and they find that in you. You said you got that mothering nature to you. You're calming, you're nurturing, all these lovely things. So they feel like they can offload their vulnerability, the things that they're vulnerable about, their problems, their fears, whatever, on you. And I don't think that's a very healthy.
Can I ask, why is it that you don't feel that you're able to?
There's very few people in my life that I'm vulnerable with. Very few people. Part of it is trust issues, because when people, I see it as if people know of a weakness of you, they can, whether they will or not, they can always use it against you. So people just don't need to know, you know. These girls have seen me in like some certain ways. Half the people in this room will never ever see me like that, no matter what. Like under no circumstance. I don't really cry in front of men. Like the odd occasion, lady stuff going on, I get a bit emotional, I might cry, but they think I'm crying for a completely different reason, and it's not. All right, it's me trying to not strangle them. All right, but I don't really get vulnerable with people. It's very few.
I would say, similarly to how Faith is thinking, you're creating an aura of safety. So you also deserve to have a feeling of safety when you have an intimate relationship.
Yeah.
You deserve that as well. Like, it's not like this thing that you kind of feel like you're unable to let your guard down. If somebody's able to be close enough to you to feel like they can do that with you, it's absolutely like you must feel able to go to them. Do you know what I mean?
It's two-way.
Yeah, it's got to be like that for genuine intimacy. Because like intimacy without vulnerability, it can't
function or
can't
grow.
function.
Yeah.
That's
So
can I just quickly say, because going off what Faith said, I personally feel like it helps
touch
because
that as well.
if, like, it's just an example of me and you, if you're a vulnerable person and you're being vulnerable to me, that automatically, like, I start to feel safe because you can be vulnerable. Because I'm not a vulnerable person either, and I'm exactly how Elizabeth is, exactly everything she said is literally me. So if you're being vulnerable with me, like, small, I will start to, like, feel safe and I'll feel relaxed, and eventually over time I will start feeling like I can be vulnerable with you as well.
It shouldn't have
It's
to
like a
be
trust
like a
thing.
very long
Over
time
time.
though.
Yeah, it shouldn't have to be like that,
shouldn't have-
but
yeah.
it makes me feel better to know that you're being vulnerable and
something
over
else
time.
you said as well,
Yeah.
Faith, yeah.
Okay.
I thought was a little, sorry,
No, you were talking first, okay?
cheers. Something else you said I thought was a little bit, maybe not wrong, but the way I took it on, when you said that you think it's out of order that a guy was what, unloading?
Offloading.
Yeah, what-
Offloading. I think if you're constantly, being vulnerable and the other person's not also opening up.
no reciprocating.
Not saying I'm not talking about trauma bonding. You don't have to trauma bond. But if that person's not giving you that element of they're unraveling and showing new layers in themselves, but you keep doing that and keep doing that, I think you have to ask yourself, why am I the one that's constantly offloading to this person that's not really giving me anything back in return? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
agree.
almost like you're
I
using
agree.
that person as
Hey,
some
but-
kind of counsellor, therapy session. And I do wonder why people do that. Because if you're seeking a relationship with someone, it's supposed to be something where you're both vulnerable with each other and you're both, give and take and give. It shouldn't be like, I'm just going to give you more and more of me, reveal more and more of myself. And at the end of the day, I don't actually know who you are.
I don't think I think there is a link between you being vulnerable and expressing what things about you don't like, the bad stuff. But there's an ease, or there should be an ease, with you just being able to say, that makes me unhappy, that makes me sad, this makes me blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Whatever it is you feel, you should just be able to express that in that moment. If you're treating your missus like a therapist,
Yeah.
there's going to be times where you're stressed out at work, this has gone wrong, something's going on in your family, who's your therapist going to be? Your partner.
Of course, I'm not talking about that, but your partner also has unraveled a level of vulnerability. You've essentially unlocked a level of that person that the outside world don't see.
Yeah,
But what the
trust,
problem comes
that's
is
the
when
trusting side of it.
you are unlocking levels where, it's intimacy. It's like that intimacy that you're at least trying to open up, but that person isn't allowing a two-way intimate flow where it's just as a very one-sided flow of intimate traffic.
Maybe that's why I feel like I pick up projects all the time.
It is why, 100%.
Yeah. I feel like I pick up projects all the time.
What do you mean?
But it's a girl term.
Men that need fixing.
Right,
Yeah, project, when you've got a project, innit?
Men that need fixing.
It's that kid that finds
Find the needy
bird with
and
the
Yeah.
brings them home and
yeah.
nurses them to health.
And that's
they
not
fly
your
off.
position.
And they don't visit, basically.
Yeah, and then they leave the nest because that's how it goes. But that's not your
Literally.
position. Do you know what
I know,
I mean?
it's not.
As a
I need to
woman,
break that.
I don't mean to say that there's no reciprocity here, because there absolutely is. When and you love somebody and you care, you take care of each other in your own way.
Yeah.
But when you put a man and a woman together, or a masculine and feminine, whatever, it could be a masculine woman it doesn't matter, masculine, feminine. When you put those two things together, if you consider yourself somebody who leans towards being like more feminine generally, and you would know that if you actually want a man who is more masculine, that's how you know, even if you're presenting in a really masculine way.
Faith taught me this.
Yeah, if you want a man's man, then you know that you're a girl's girl deep down. And if that's what you want, then your safety is absolutely paramount.
Yeah.
You should be the one who is the bird.
But then I see it like this. Okay, so where are these dudes now? I would have sat there, poured out my heart, been vulnerable, and where are they?
That's the fair.
You see?
But
That's
that's the
I
fair.
think
Yeah.
the point that Andrea's making is
No,
that
I know
once
what point she was making,
Once
but-
you understand why you pick up the
Projects.
It won't keep happening.
birds, you then start to pick up different type of men
Right.
as a result of
Right.
understanding yourself more.
And what you actually need.
So with this vulnerability topic,
You've been very
weaknesses and
vulnerable,
strengths.
by the way.
Yeah, you are.
I know. I let loose.
You never
a
talk
few-
about yourself.
I never talk about myself ever. But I've
It happens
decided
anyway, it happens
Amazing.
anyway.
I'm going to. I've made a conscious decision though.
Yeah.
So it's calculated. I've made a conscious decision. So when it comes to vulnerability, strengths and weaknesses, is there a men versus women's thing? Are they different with how they're vulnerable as well?
I feel like women have unintentional therapy sessions with each other all the time. If a bunch of birds are going, you know, they'd be like...
Bunch of birds, love it.
Bunch of birds.
Bunch of birds.
If you
chirping away.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not having like a girls' night in, a couple of bottles of wine, whatever it is, you're all sitting around your PJs.
Oh, that Cockney Black doesn't love me. What do I do, girls?
You're going to, like I said, unintentionally have a therapy session. So you're going to sit there and you're going to say, this is happening with this guy. And you're going to touch on numerous topics.
Yeah.
Work, sex life, new boyfriend, problems with the long-term relationship, marriage, etc., etc. You're going to touch on all these different things. And what you find with women, I'm not saying guys don't do it, but it's not done so often with such, like, I know that happens. When you ever known about a bunch of guys sitting around on a Friday night cracking open cans of beer and talking about their problems?
They should do
Yeah,
that.
That's what you guys
You
need
should.
to
Might be a
do.
good thing.
Come on, boys,
So
do better.
There's this.
It helps.
There's this vulnerability that women have that they do with regularity. It's it is a therapy session,
Yeah.
and I'm repeating myself. But within that, you learn about yourselves.
Yeah.
You're sharing problems. You're sharing solutions. You're sharing all these kind of like issues and ways to get out of it. That for a guy, we're very specific with who we're going to open up to about those kind of things. And there's, as I said, there's this kind of like unseen macho way that is kind of like, if I've got a problem, I'll just deal with it. I'll just deal with it. But you can't. It's, no, I won't say
A
can't
problem
exclusively.
shared is a problem halved, as they say.
For sure. And also sharing your solutions helps other people solve their problems as well.
Very true.
That's why you, in your mind, and we're all guilty of this as human beings, you can only work out so much in
Yes.
your mind.
Yes.
Because you've only lived certain types of situations, so your conclusions are all going to be based on that. So some people say, and this is projection, and all of us have some kind of projection, they'll go, I couldn't find a solution. So you'll be with someone, like in a relationship with someone, and they will say, I can't see a way to solve this. I can't see a way to solve this. And that'll be their way out of whatever's going on with you and them. And they're hell-bent on the reasons and the conclusions, what's going on in their mind, but they don't say to you, you know what, just change the question slightly by saying, look, I've got this issue, how do I get over it? How do we overcome this? How can I make that better? Have you got a solution for this? These small things, guys will choose maybe one or two particular guys to have that conversation with. But again, that's only one person. You've got to sit around for 5 years. However many it is, there's a lot more going on, there's a lot more options. And I feel like, and there's a fact actually, suicide amongst men is 3 times higher than women. And you're finding in the black community, the men is really high compared to white guys or other. I shouldn't say it's just a matter of black and white. It isn't, but that's high as well. So there's an issue with us expressing ourselves and being vulnerable.
Yes.
And it's very important that that's done. Also, and I don't want to point the finger at women, there's too much of a, you're weak if you talk like that. Or if something
I've been guilty of that, as you guys all know, because Cockney came at me for that. But it was misunderstood. Because guys, as I said, can and have been and will be vulnerable with me, but there's a level, because again, you have to know who you're dealing with, because for me, certain vulnerability I find a turn off. And that's because and it's really bad, but if I feel like I can deal with it, as my man, the type of man that I should have or want, should be able to deal with that too.
What?
But and I know it's really bad to say that, but that's how I feel.
What
and
I'd say to that,
I don't know how to deal with that, because that's just me. I'm
that's your way.
strong in a certain way.
I'd say it's a human being thing. It's not that particular thing with what you're saying. It's not an issue of men or women. You're a human being that has lived a certain life up to this point, and Elizabeth is able to deal with that. So whoever that person was in front of you, wherever their gender was, whether it be male or female, you would be able to deal with it. So if you were to if you were to change that to a lady, would you then go, well, I can deal with it, why can't you? Or would you advise her and try and help her to deal with it? To understand?
Yeah, I see, because like my brothers, obviously they're men, they can be, I'm mostly the only woman that they are vulnerable with, because you know men do not show emotions sometimes. And if my brother cries, which they have in front of me, I'm not going to think of them any less. But if it was my boyfriend now, I'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
like, seriously.
Okay, so that,
What's up?
yeah, so that kind of response to someone being vulnerable will, for me being a man, would make me not want to go near you in the long run. Because if something's really weighing me down, I can't get through to my friends, and we're living together, we're established, and I'm coming home and I'm saying, look, this is really bugging me, and I'm trying to get out to you. Sometimes it's only as you're expressing things, your throat closes. Like you can't plan for it. It just happens, and sometimes you don't realise how heavy something is
until you start
talking about it. It's only in that moment, like I said to you, your throat closes. It's not, you can't get the words out.
Okay.
You start getting emotional. So if I'm like that with supposedly my loved one, like my co-D for life now, that's what we're planning for, right? Like marriage until the end, until one of us dies. If I'm trying to express that to her, and she's my best mate, and she's like,
yeah, so damaging, and their egos can't take it.
Okay,
it's not ego. It's not ego.
No, because we all have, like, when I say ego, I don't mean in the negative sense. I'm saying your sense of self, like, that is your ego. Like, not as in, like, big macho. I'm just saying, you know, the sense of who you are.
Sorry to cut you, but you know we've got this men-women thing now. Being a black woman, and I'm sure all of us here have experienced it, when we're trying to speak to not just a partner, now we're talking about our brothers, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, and we're trying to be vulnerable to our black men regarding certain issues that we feel like we're not being protective. We're being vulnerable and telling you, this is what we need, this is what we want, yada da da.
This is how we feel.
This is how we feel. So many men, as black women, so I'm going on to the black thing, all right? So many black men, and I don't see this across the board in other races, shut us down. So then, especially someone like me, I'm never gonna be vulnerable, because if I feel like I'm not protected by you as a man, then you know what, forget it, I'll just deal with it. If you're not protecting me, then I'll just protect myself, so I don't need you. You know, so this is another level of vulnerability where it's like, everybody wants everybody to express how they feel, but then when they do, it's like, stop moaning, you're a woman. All you guys do is moan, you've got a problem, is it that time of the month, all sorts of shit you lot talk, right? The minute we are vulnerable.
Yeah, can I say something back?
Yeah.
Two things, yeah. You can't have it both ways. This is what you've said. I'm going to try and address both things, right? You've sat there and said, if a guy's in front of me and he's vulnerable and he cries, I'm going to think her. But at the same time, you're saying that you're allowed to...
But that's me personally. A lot of women aren't like me.
Yeah, but...
She's talking generally now.
I'm talking about a general term. I'm not talking about personally.
Yeah, so forget her story.
Yeah, forget what I've said.
Let's think about it, the whole thing.
Okay, so look, this conversation for me, 100% has to be had more than us sitting here. There's not enough communication between, I mean, in a civil way, relaxed way. Passion will come out at some point, we get it. There's not enough dialogue between black men and black women on these kind of platforms where we discuss how we protect you, or how you don't feel protected or guarded by us.
How many ways can you tell someone what it is?
Hang on.
I just feel like that's a cop-out.
That's the wrong answer. I'm asking you, express it. Explain it.
But people have, is what I'm trying to say. How many times do you want a woman to say the same thing?
You know how men say that
let Lara say something.
Wait, you know
Let's
how...
say black women
Yes.
are not protected by black men.
Yes.
Right, if I'm sitting in now, and I'm asking you how, just tell us. Don't say, oh, no, we do about...
Okay, let's tell you.
You saying we do isn't an answer.
You see how men say that
That's what I'm asking,
the way they think is like based on logic and how we think.
Men in general or black men?
Men in general say that the way they think is based on logic, and the way women think is emotion. But if that's how we feel, and it is, even if we are speaking based on emotion, it's still valid. But because you guys are thinking logic,
it to emotion,
yeah, it automatically gets shut down. It's like, okay, you're just speaking based on emotions.
To be able to harness and tap into her emotions is weaponized a lot. Yes, do women do irrational things? Of course we do. Do men do irrational things? Yes. And I think that when it comes to women, men shut us down and use our emotions and whatnot against us, and in doing so you're completely mitigating the whole issue at hand and the topic that we've raised and the issue that we have, and are just dismissing us completely and chopping it down to emotion. And because you're the logical ones, therefore now your way of thinking, your pathology now takes precedence against us, before us, and I think that's wrong.
Can I give an example of the Made You Think page? Now, it is very male-dominated, right? And this is what I mean by protected. So, a woman could say something or make a comment and she gets slated, right? A man could say literally the same thing and everybody's listening to him. Oh, bro, you know what? If say it's even to do with kids or whatever. Oh, you shouldn't have been a hoe and open up your legs then. Whereas the guy, you know what, bro? All these hoes, they're not worth nothing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we can't be vulnerable in certain circumstances.
It's the same as shade bar, though. So
I hate this.
It's the same.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
No, I think.
Listen,
am I wrong? No, I'm not.
No, I look at maybe.
But I'm a double standard now.
No, I'm not double standard because I even
because if you go in shade borough,
no, but I find the men even do the
guys.
same thing. The men that come into shade borough do the same thing as Made You Think.
Yes or no?
No.
No.
No, I don't agree that
This is why we think. This is why we shut you up and shut you down, because when it comes to something,
Shut
up.
This is why, because you've made a valid point or made you think it's very male dominated. When a woman gets in and says the wrong thing, the guys are on her. They're going to say stuff, right? We know that, we see it. Shade bar, it's just the opposite. But you're not sitting there like, oh, no, it doesn't exist.
That's the difference. Is we actually do listen to men sometimes when they say stuff. But
this is why,
this
is why we argue, because I made a valid opposite point and you look like, no.
Can I say one thing? This is where I feel like... Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
So, like, okay, men want so badly, in so many ways, to be leaders. Yep. Do we not hear it all the time?
Yep.
Is that wrong?
But yet, when it comes to something to do with dating, with women, suddenly it's like, well, you do it as well. It's like, well, when are you going to lead?
Exactly.
Like, set the precedent.
Exactly.
Understand that men, let me finish. Let me finish, just let me land. This is where the problem comes in, I feel, and it's especially bad within the black community. I feel like, especially in our community, unfortunately, there's this thing where when it comes to anything between the two sexes, it's like the men, instead of saying, you know what, let me set the precedent here, let me understand the power that I have. Really, when men are in their power, they can command a situation where women are involved. They're able to set the precedents and set the pace. But when it comes to dating and relationships, all of a sudden it's
they
like,
want to be the bitch.
You do it as well. So why can't
you want to be like the woman?
Why can't men in this respect, they like to do it in every other respect, they want to lead in business, they want to do this, but in this respect, why is it so difficult for men to just step up? And I'm not saying women are not at fault, because I believe that we are. And the reasons why I do the things I do on my platform is to kind of redress that balance. But I'm saying this is all, we cannot do that unless men step first. Men must step first. That is what the mantle of manhood requires.
What are you asking for?
Men,
leadership.
One moment. In this, I've heard what you said, and I think what you said is valid, up to the point where I'm now saying to you, back where I was 5 minutes ago. You can say, do this, do that, but if you're not going to be submissive to it, what are you asking for?
We don't be submissive because you're not doing it.
Cool, all right.
So
give me an example.
I'm a very dominant woman. Give
me an example where you think men aren't leading.
Can I give you an example?
Can
I answer
we haven't got
okay.
Go ahead, because you're arguing about it.
Let Faith say one thing.
Yeah, sorry.
And this is also going to answer your question as well earlier when you're asking about protections. What can men do? So, for example, I don't know what the heck this podcast is called. Something like Fit and Fresh, or
Fresh
something
and
Fresh
Fit.
and Fit.
Oh, I know.
Those
Baby Eagle and Baby Nerd.
This is one of your typical dudes on a podcast talking about shit and not really talking about anything at the same time. Anyway, they had a situation where they were talking about black women and saying they don't date dark-skinned women because they're named. I can't remember.
We don't do night riders.
Yeah, we don't do night.
Night riders. Now, listen. If a black woman had gotten on a platform,
Are they black boys?
Yes.
Yeah.
If a black woman with the same, platform, comparable platform as them, had gone on, the internet and said derogatory things about dark-skinned men or whatever, or black men, do you understand how torn down it would be? Out of order, yes. Now, they said that thing. I have not seen men come and hold them accountable. All I ever see is women standing up for ourselves. In fact, we had to get Brittany Reiner.
Brittany, I was shocked when Brittany.
Useless women had to come in their place.
I don't even know how to
Useless
describe her.
woman, I cannot.
Is this?
Brittany,
She's a professional baby mother, basically.
Oh, you mean is this an American podcast?
What's her name? Baby
I know who you're
mother.
talking about.
What's his name?
Some NBA guy.
I know you mean.
Yeah. Now, for her to have to speak for us, Jesus, we know shit.
But she didn't speak for us, you know that, right? She was speaking
she spoke for herself.
Yeah, we understand. But I didn't
Well,
see...
are you telling me... Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Continue
go on, sorry.
with your answering your question.
Yeah, go on.
Now,
Let's go back to comments.
Men,
you didn't see...
In the comment section is one thing, but you have prominent men like Charlemagne, you've got all the kind of rappers that everyone likes to put on a platform. Where were they? They are never anywhere to be seen. 50 Cent has...
Why are they not cancelled?
Uncountable amount of things about black women.
Yeah.
Yet, it's a joke.
He's still supported.
And he's still supported.
And
now, my
then this
issue
is why we
is
can't
that
be vulnerable.
when you bring this now to platforms and address this amongst black men, oh, well, I'm not like that. I'm not like that. Every man is not like that. So if you're not like that and your bro's not like that, then who is? Do you understand? There's a problem at hand. And my problem with our community is that a lot of us do not have the mental capacity to see things beyond ourselves. We're always centering ourselves all the time in these conversations. If you claim you don't do that, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But now you need to look outside of yourself and see there's a problem.
And speak
to yourself as
men.
Fix this problem
Absolutely.
now? And so this is why, and you said you don't, you said that why don't we do this, why don't we speak? We do. We're constantly holding
and we're
forums
emotional because
to
we
tell
say
men this is what we need, this is how we feel, this is the things that are affecting us, especially as black women. And our men never do what's necessary to come and listen first and foremost and make the necessary changes. All you guys need to do, and this is the last point I'll say, when you hear these things and you look around and you're able to identify, yes, these things do happen, and we do have like you said, the mantle of manhood or being a man is somewhat taking leadership, right? When we know that this problem is here, how can we then now go and school the younger guys, our friends, our colleagues and whatnot? How can we do something to stop this from happening? Because I tell you now, as a man, your image is so intrinsically linked to how your women are treated. If you're going to be treating your women in a way that is, you're creating baby mums out of them, you're mocking them, you're calling them names, you're holding these stupid podcasts, calling women females and constantly degrading women, how do you think society looks at you as a black man?
It's a cognitive
because every
dissonance
other
for me.
part of society understands that.
And then they
the
expect
man
us to
is
be
the
vulnerable.
leader. The man
But not
sets the
vulnerable.
president and the man is there to help guide the community. As black people, we are a joke. And I'm not saying it's because of a man. I'm not saying it's because of a man. Because this is a two-way street, because we're all guilty in this. But at some point, everybody needs to go back and think, what can I do? Rather than always being like, well, you as women, you do that as well, and blah, blah, blah. No, we're never going to progress as a people. And that's why we are a joke. And that's why we'll consistently be at the bottom of the socio-economic ladder.
Fact.
Okay.
I think that...
Can I just say something? We're going to be wrapping it up in a minute. I need everybody to just tell me, short sentences, roughly what there will be a solution for this, because it can't be men versus women. We can't be fighting all the time. You can't have women like me that feel that she cannot be vulnerable with 90% of the people in this world. You know, there needs to be a way that we all feel safe and safeguarded by each other, by the same sex, the opposite sex, or whatever sex you want to be. You know, we all need to be protected. So I'm going to work this way around. actually, no, let me go with Cockney because you wanted to say something before I interjected. We'll go from Cockney and work our way around. So Cockney?
Reply to Faith and I'll pick up those
Reply
two
to
things.
Faith, yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, and I think everything you said to me sounds right. I don't have any argument with it at all.
Oh.
What they're saying...
No, that feels good.
That feels good. A man that is listening.
That feels so good.
Took heed very quickly.
You know, because I've said this before to friends outside of here. A black man's experience, black women don't know. And your experience, we don't know. We don't know because we don't sit down and have these chats. So you feel like, it's almost like we're trying to understand this example, yeah? We're living the same experience, but not communicating about what's happening within that experience to each other. And I don't mean the same as in my life, the same as yours. I mean, you might have gone into work and experienced racism, or not being protected by a black man, or whatever the black woman's journey is that you feel like we don't understand. It's more of the dialogue that needs to happen for us to understand you and for you to understand us as well. It's a two-way street. And like what I was saying about the comments I made, you think, is one way, biased, more guys. The comments on Shadeborough are biased as well. Those guys that have said that, scum of the earth so far as I'm compared, because they come from black wombs, ultimately.
Yeah,
so if they're saying that, are they going to go and say it to their mothers? If you've got a sexual
One of those little
preference,
fuckers would most probably say it to his mum. He's actually a little shit.
if you've got a preference though, yeah. If you've got a
He would.
preference, your preference is your preference. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? With
But
like
don't
that,
put someone down in the process.
you don't have to, because your preference is your preference, and there's a way you can describe your preference, being articulate, just talking about your preference without knocking anyone else that isn't your preference. That's just not, it's just unnecessary. And I feel like guys, they do that for clickbait, because they've obviously sat down, watched that, and gone, yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to draw traction through BS, so far as I'm concerned, right?
So you're saying basically we need to communicate more for there to be one more vulnerability.
More conversations.
And more conversations.
More
to happen so
conversations.
we don't
I didn't
feel
know
this
about
way.
that. I didn't know about the comments that 50 Cent made. I don't
Yeah.
know about this kind of thing. And I'm on Instagram all the time.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you repost it. I follow you. I don't follow
I
you.
would never
I haven't
post
seen
that.
Yeah, we wouldn't.
That's
Yeah,
So
We wouldn't.
how do you raise awareness to it then?
Very true.
Because you repost other stuff that you want people to see, but that you hide away. How are we supposed to know then if you don't share it with us?
Fair enough.
Do you know what I'm saying? Let us know. Let us know what you're mad about, and then you're going to see what guys are going to step up. But if you're going to hide it away and be like, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm not this, I'm not... How do we know? We don't
No,
know.
can I just say no?
Oh, okay, let me go to Faith, and then you can say, Faith, how a solution? Two lines, roughly.
I think
What?
that people should start seeking accountability from within. Victimhood mentality gets you nowhere, because I mean we're a group of people that can show that it has gotten us nowhere. I think the ability to listen is very powerful. People should learn that, like today. And I think that empathy as well. We're at a place, it's a very weird place where we don't really relate to each other as though we're human beings. It's like we are at loggerhead and there's stonewalling and all kinds of things going on. And I think if we understand that we need to listen, you might not agree with things, but at least listen to understand. And I think we actually can't even be talking about the later stages because we haven't even hit the ground running as a
Very
community. We just literally need to, like I said, accountability and listen. That's it, really.
Lara Valentine?
I agree with Faith with the accountability, reasonable dialogue. And I feel like it shouldn't always just have to be men versus women. I feel like if, as a man, and if you see your male counterpart saying something or doing something that is you yourself doesn't believe in, or you're like, that's not me, you should be able to pick him up on it and say,
hold him
okay.
accountable.
Yes.
Put him up and tell him he's doing wrong, yeah.
You should be able to pull them up and say, same way I would do with my friends. Like if I saw my girl doing something, that's not me, but I should be able to pull her up on it also and say, listen, I don't agree with this, and you don't have to do it that way. Like if that's not how you feel, you don't like that, that's fine, but you don't have to, do other things at the service. But Yeah.
Andrea?
What are you saying about no? I've got
Yeah,
to hear this.
I'm kind of a little bit different, only because I just feel as though there's a point in time where, for me, I feel like more dialogue isn't the answer. And the reason I say that is just because, you know, there's a point in time, I feel like we're kind of infantilizing people a little
What's
bit.
that word? I don't know what that means.
Like babying,
Babying.
like coddling. Like, I feel like people know, they're just not doing anything
said
about
I
it.
didn't know.
Not you, I'm just, you know,
Yeah, but
I
it's
don't want
bands
to
with
talk
other
about
guys
you.
like me.
But I'm saying the critical mass, okay? I'm not talking about the outliers. I'm talking the majority of the men that we're discussing do know. They're just choosing not to act. So for me, once you reach that stage, more talking is not the answer.
What is the
Now
answer?
it's about our actions. So if you don't want to engage with a certain type of man who is disrespectful, you know, tears you down, withdraw access. That's the answer. When you start withdrawing access, your absence will change a whole lot more things than your complaints.
Well, he needs to
And
know.
for
But
me,
he needs to know
they
what
do
he's
know,
doing.
is what I'm
No,
saying.
but yeah, but
overall,
Guys, we could go on forever with this
Yeah.
topic. So
I hear what you're
you know what I'm
saying, but it's
I
just
understand what
no,
you're
but
saying.
now I'm tired of
I
letting things
understand
go.
what you're saying.
I'm tired of letting things go, and I want to stick it on you. And I want to tell you.
do so
Guys,
and know that will appease you, but
Yeah.
understand that in order for people to change, sometimes you need to just literally act.
I did all of
Very
that.
true.
I wouldn't change
Anyway,
and tell you both
this
that.
could go on forever. We will talk forever. I'd just like to say thank you, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Tune in. Catch us on our socials. We've now got TikTok. You'll be seeing us soon. And guys, thank you ever so much for your input.
Baby, I know you're gonna